Every day, momentum walks out the door, and you're the one holding it open. Not because you mean to, but because you let tiny, harmless-looking decisions pile up until your drive is gone. Scrolling for just 5 minutes before starting. Answering a quick message before finishing your task. Telling yourself you'll get back to it in a second. Each one feels like nothing, but together, they're why your progress keeps dying halfway. Momentum isn't motivation. It's not about waiting to feel ready or getting a burst of inspiration. It's the invisible force that makes every next step easier than the last. The thing that carries you forward when your willpower is low. And once it's gone, you pay the price in ways you can't always see. The real danger is how subtle the loss is. It doesn't happen in one dramatic crash. It happens in small drops. You start the day with drive, then let it slip with one distraction. You find your focus again, then break it with a meaningless interruption. By the end of the day, you wonder why you're exhausted but have nothing real to show for it. Think of momentum like pushing a heavy wheel. At first, it's hard to move. Every push feels like a fight. But after a while, it starts rolling on its own, and your effort multiplies. Now imagine letting go halfway up the hill. You don't just lose progress, you lose all the effort it took to get that far. Tomorrow, you're back at the bottom, starting over again. That's what most people do every single day without realizing it. They rebuild their energy from scratch instead of protecting the rhythm they've already created. And here's the truth. You don't need more effort to fix this. You don't need to work longer hours, grind harder, or push yourself to exhaustion. You just need to stop breaking the flow you've already built. Momentum isn't something you have to chase every day. It's something you keep if you know how. And once you do, progress stops feeling like a constant uphill battle. You stop wasting the best part of your energy just trying to get going. Instead, you stay in motion, and everything you do builds on what you did before. Over the years, I've watched people double, triple, even quadruple their results without adding a single extra hour to their day, just by learning to hold on to momentum instead of losing it. They stopped making the little, harmless choices that were silently stealing their drive. They learned to start strong, remove friction, and carry their wins from one part of the day to the next. In this conversation, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. 7 principles that will help you lock in your daily momentum so it can't slip away. Not abstract ideas, not vague motivation. Real, practical steps you can use starting today to stop sabotaging yourself. You're going to learn how to spot the exact moments you're breaking your own flow and cut them off before they cost you your day. How to protect the first burst of energy you get each morning so it fuels everything else you do. How to remove the friction points that keep slowing you down, even when you think you're working hard. And how to carry momentum from one win to the next so you finish your days stronger than you started. If you've been feeling like every day is a fresh start in the worst way, if you keep wondering why you can't seem to build on your progress, this will change that. Because once you learn how to hold momentum, you'll stop making your future self fight battles your present self could have already won. So let's break the pattern. Let's stop giving away the rhythm that would make your life easier. And let's build a way of working, living, and moving forward where momentum is no longer fragile. It's yours to keep. You can't fix what you can't see. And that's why most people never solve the problem of losing momentum. They don't recognize how much it's costing them. Losing momentum isn't just about slowing down. It's about making every next step harder than it needs to be. It's forcing yourself to start from zero again and again, draining your energy before you've even done the real work. The real cost is hidden. You don't notice it in the moment. You only see it when you look back at the week and realize you've been busy without moving forward. You see it when you look at a project that's been in progress for months and wonder why it's still not finished. You see it when you start something strong and end it weak, again and again. Think about it like this. Momentum is a multiplier. When you have it, every action pushes the next one forward. You spend less energy and get more results. But when you lose it, you're multiplying in reverse. Every stop forces you to spend more time and more energy just to get back where you were. That's why some people feel like they're constantly fighting their own life. They're not moving forward because they're spending all their energy rebuilding the same ground they've already covered. Here's the tricky part. Momentum doesn't just disappear. You give it away, one small decision at a time. You take a quick break that turns into half an hour. You check one message and suddenly you're down a rabbit hole. You stop for something small, and when you come back, the flow is gone. And the worst part? You don't think it's a big deal. You tell yourself you'll pick up where you left off. But that's not how momentum works. It doesn't wait for you. Once it's gone, you have to fight to get it back. Imagine a runner in a race. They're moving fast, smooth, in rhythm. Then they stop. The next step isn't easy. They have to pull their whole body back into motion, and it never feels the same as before. That's you, every day, if you're not protecting your momentum. When you finally see this for what it is, you understand why some days feel so heavy. It's not the work itself. It's the constant starting over. It's living in restart mode. And here's the truth. If you don't make momentum a priority, you'll keep living this way. Your days will stay scattered. Your projects will drag on. Your results will stay smaller than they could be. But once you decide to protect it, everything changes. You start noticing the moments you're about to break your own flow, and you stop yourself. You keep moving, even if it's at a slower pace, because you know that's better than stopping. You begin to carry your progress from one task to the next, instead of letting it die in between. This is why I want you to pay attention today. Notice how many times you interrupt yourself. Notice how many times you pause, just for a second, and struggle to restart. Notice how many times you think you're taking a break when you're actually breaking your momentum. The first step to stopping the loss is making it visible. Once you see it, you can catch it. Once you catch it, you can change it. And when you do, the entire structure of your day changes. You work smoother, you finish stronger, and you have energy left for the things that matter outside of work. If this is hitting home, make sure you stay with me, because what's coming next will show you exactly how to stop losing momentum before the day even starts. And once you learn that, every other step we cover will become 10 times easier. Subscribe now so you don't miss it. Most momentum is lost before the day even begins. Not at lunch, not in the middle of the afternoon, right at the start. The way you handle your first hour sets the tone for everything that follows. If you open the day reacting, scrolling, checking, replying, you've already handed control of your energy to something else. You've given away the first and most powerful push you'll have all day. Think of your morning like lighting a fire. That first spark matters. It decides how strong the flame will be. And yet, most people smother it before it even catches. They start by looking at everything the world wants from them instead of what they want from themselves. The problem isn't just distraction. It's direction. When you start in reaction mode, you've already told your mind that the day isn't yours. It belongs to whatever comes at you next. That single choice decides whether you'll be led by momentum or spend the day chasing it. If you want to stop losing momentum every day, you have to win the first push. And you win it by making the first actions of your day deliberate, not accidental. That doesn't mean you need a complicated morning routine. It means you need one clear, intentional action that belongs to you. Something you choose. Something that says, "This is my day. I decide how it starts." It could be writing down your 3 most important priorities before doing anything else. It could be moving your body to shake off mental fog. It could be sitting in silence for 5 minutes, clearing your mind before engaging with the world. The action itself matters less than the ownership it creates. When you open your day with a win, even a small one, you anchor yourself. You have a point of stability that carries into everything else you do. And the more you protect this space, the stronger it becomes. But here's where people sabotage themselves. They start the day with intention, then immediately break it. They do their morning habit, but before it has time to take root, they flood themselves with notifications, news, and demands. It's like planting a seed and then stomping on it before it can grow. If you want this to work, you have to treat your first push of the day like sacred ground. No unnecessary interruptions. No quick detours. No just checking anything that doesn't serve your focus. This doesn't just protect your momentum, it multiplies it. Because once you start strong, You carry that energy forward. One win leads to the next. One deliberate choice sets up another. By midday, you're still riding the rhythm you created in the first hour. And the best part? This approach makes it easier to handle disruptions later in the day. When your momentum is strong early, it takes more to knock you off balance. You recover faster. You return to your flow sooner. Because you're not starting from zero, you're starting from strength. So here's your challenge. For the next week, claim the first 30 to 60 minutes of your day as your own. Choose one action that matters. Do it before you give the world a chance to pull you into its chaos. And guard that time with the same seriousness you'd give to any important meeting or deadline. At first, it will feel like you're protecting a small thing. But what you're really protecting is your foundation. Because once the first push is yours, the rest of the day becomes much harder to derail. Momentum doesn't survive on chance. It survives on intention, especially in the first hour you're awake. Get that right, and you've already won half the battle. And there's another way momentum dies, even for people who start strong: invisible friction. The tiny, constant drag you barely notice, but that slows you down all day long. That's where we're going next. Momentum doesn't only depend on how you start your day. It depends on how you keep it moving. The truth is, most people lose momentum not in one big crash, but in dozens of tiny pauses they don't even notice. They finish one task, then stall before starting the next. They wrap up a meeting, then drift for 15 minutes deciding what to do. They take a short break that stretches just long enough to break the rhythm. Each pause might seem harmless, but every time you stop without a plan, you invite friction back into your day. And momentum, once slowed, takes more effort to rebuild. If step 2 was about starting the day strong, this is about staying in motion, about moving from one thing to the next with purpose, so you never have to restart from zero. One of the simplest ways to keep momentum alive is to shorten your transitions. Don't leave long empty spaces between finishing one thing and beginning the next. The longer the gap, the harder it is to restart. Instead, bridge tasks together. The moment you finish one, use the energy from that win to push you into the next. Here's how it works in practice. Before you finish your current task, decide exactly what you'll start next. It sounds simple, but it changes everything. Because the hardest part of momentum is often not doing the work. It's deciding what to do next when you've stopped. The second strategy is stacking small wins. When you complete something, no matter how small, let that completion push you into another quick win. This builds psychological speed. Your brain starts associating progress with reward, making it easier to keep going. The third is preparing the next step in advance. If you know what's coming, you remove the hesitation that kills rhythm. Think of it like a relay race. The smoother the handoff, the faster the team moves. The same is true for your work. Set yourself up so the next handoff, from current task to next task, is clean and quick. Another key is to minimize mental resets. Every time you stop to switch tools, dig for resources, or remember what you were supposed to do, you reset your brain. That's a micro restart, and too many of those will exhaust you. Keep what you need in place before you start. Make sure your environment supports continuous movement, not repeated setup. Also, avoid what I call energy leaks between tasks. That's when you finish something and think, I'll just check my phone real quick. 5 minutes turns into 10. You're out of rhythm, and you need to climb back in. If you need a break, make it deliberate. Set a clear limit and return directly to action. The mindset here is simple: momentum loves motion. The more you can keep moving, even in small steps, the easier it is to keep your drive alive. That doesn't mean you never rest. It means you rest with intention, so you can re-enter your flow without a fight. Over time, these habits compound. Your work stops feeling like a series of disconnected efforts and starts feeling like one continuous push forward. You end the day with more done, more energy left, and less frustration about where the time went. If step 2 gave you a strong launch, step 3 keeps the engine running. And when you protect both the start and the flow, you stop losing momentum halfway through your day. But there's one more trap to avoid. Even people who master the start and protect the flow still sabotage themselves by pushing so hard, so fast, that they burn out before the day is done. That's why the next step is about building a pace you can actually sustain. Speed without control will destroy your momentum faster than slowing down ever could. The biggest mistake people make after finding their rhythm is trying to run at full speed all the time. They think the faster they go, the more they'll get done. But in reality, they end up burning through their energy so quickly that they crash hard. Momentum isn't about moving as fast as possible. It's about moving at a pace you can sustain, and sustain for longer than you think you need to. If you sprint too soon, you'll stop sooner. And every stop costs you more than you realize. Think of your day like a long-distance race. The goal isn't to explode out of the gate and hope you make it to the end. The goal is to set a pace that lets you keep moving without losing power. When you find that cadence, you'll end the day strong instead of crawling across the finish line. This is where a lot of driven people get it wrong. They equate intensity with productivity. They pour everything into the first few hours, riding that adrenaline high, until they hit the wall. The second half of the day becomes a fight just to stay focused. And the next morning, they're already starting with less in the tank. Here's the truth. If you want momentum every day, you have to manage your output. It's not about working less. It's about working smarter with the energy you have. Start by noticing your natural rhythm. When do you have the most focus? When does your energy dip? Instead of fighting those patterns, work with them. Put your highest value tasks in your peak energy zones. Save lighter or more routine work for when your energy naturally dips. Next, break your day into focused blocks. Don't try to power through 8 hours without pause. That's a direct path to burnout. Work in concentrated bursts, then give yourself a short, deliberate reset. These resets aren't wasted time. They're what keep you sharp enough to maintain momentum for the long run. The key is to make your breaks intentional. Scrolling aimlessly or drifting into distractions isn't a reset, it's a leak. Use your breaks to recharge, not to drain yourself further. Stand up, stretch, breathe, take a short walk. Come back to work with the mind and body ready to keep moving. Another strategy is to set clear stopping points for yourself. Instead of working until you're spent, stop while you still have energy in reserve. This keeps your rhythm alive and makes it easier to start again the next day. Think of it like ending a run before you're gasping for air. It's easier to lace up your shoes again tomorrow. You also need to avoid what I call energy debt. That's when you push yourself so hard on one day that you're forced to pay for it with a slower, less productive day after. It feels good in the moment, but it breaks the consistency you're trying to build. And momentum is built on consistency. So instead of measuring success by how much you do in one burst, measure it by how long you can keep moving without losing quality. Your goal isn't a record-breaking sprint. It's an unbroken chain of forward motion. When you build this kind of cadence, something powerful happens. Your productivity stops, depending on motivation. It's carried by rhythm. You show up, you work at your pace, you get things done, day after day. And because you're not draining yourself completely, you have energy left for the next day, and the next, and the next. This is what separates people who achieve consistently from those who burn out after a few good weeks. They've learned that momentum is less about pushing harder and more about protecting the pace that keeps them going. So ask yourself, am I working at a speed I can sustain? Or am I sprinting toward a crash? Because if you're sprinting, the crash isn't a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And every crash will cost you far more momentum than you gained by going faster. Find your cadence. Guard it. Because once you do, momentum becomes something you can rely on, not something you have to constantly fight to rebuild. And once you have that cadence, the next step is to protect it from the single biggest killer of momentum, breaking your own streak. That's exactly where we're going next. Momentum dies the moment you break your streak. It doesn't matter how strong your start was, how smooth your flow has been, or how well you've paced yourself. If you stop showing up, even for a day, the chain snaps. And the next time you try to pick it up, it won't feel the same. This is why protecting your sequence of action is critical. Momentum loves consistency. It thrives on repetition. The more days you stack, the stronger your rhythm becomes. But the reverse is also true. The more often you let a day go, the weaker your rhythm gets. The danger is that breaks often start small. You skip one day because you're tired, or because you don't have time. You tell yourself it's just once. But momentum doesn't measure intention, it measures action. And one break has a way of inviting another. The solution isn't to demand perfection from yourself. It's to make the chain as hard to break as possible. And that starts with lowering the bar on the hard days. Here's the principle: something beats nothing. When you can't do your full routine, do a shorter version. When you can't work at full intensity, show up at lower intensity. When you can't put in an hour, put in 10 minutes. The goal is to keep the streak alive, even if it's on a smaller scale. This matters more than it might seem. Because momentum isn't about maximum output, it's about uninterrupted movement. If you can protect that movement, even at a minimal level, you'll keep the chain intact. One of the most powerful tools for this is creating micro versions of your habits. If you normally write for an hour, your micro version is writing one paragraph. If you normally work out for 45 minutes, your micro version is doing 5 push-ups. If you normally meditate for 20 minutes, your micro version is taking 3 deep breaths. These micro versions do 2 things. First, they make it almost impossible to say, "I don't have time." Second, they keep your identity as someone who shows up intact, even on your lowest energy days. Another way to protect your streak is to set non-negotiable cues. These are small triggers that tell you it's time to start, no matter how you feel. Putting on your running shoes, opening your work document, clearing your desk. The act itself becomes the switch that turns momentum back on. And don't underestimate the power of tracking your streak visually. It might sound simple, but marking your progress on a calendar or app taps into a deep psychological drive. You won't want to break the chain once you see it grow. Of course, there will be times when life throws something big at you. Illness, emergencies, travel. When that happens, don't throw the whole system away. Shrink it down. Do the smallest possible version just to plant the flag for the day. You're not aiming for progress here. You're aiming for continuity. The people who maintain momentum long-term aren't the ones who work at full speed every day. They're the ones who refuse to let a single day pass without doing something that keeps the wheel turning. They don't let perfect become the enemy of consistent. Remember, the streak isn't about the size of the step. It's about the fact that you took it. Break it, and you have to rebuild the habit of showing up. Protect it, and each day becomes easier to begin than the last. Protecting your streak turns showing up into something automatic. And when showing up becomes automatic, the small wins start appearing on their own, quietly stacking until they carry you further than you thought possible. Small wins are the oxygen of momentum. They might not look like much in the moment, but stack enough of them together and they'll carry you further than a single big achievement ever could. The problem is, most people dismiss them. They finish something small and think, that doesn't count. They downplay their own progress because it didn't feel dramatic. And in doing so, they throw away one of the most powerful tools they have to keep moving forward. Momentum isn't just about avoiding setbacks. It's about feeding yourself enough progress to want to keep going. Small wins do exactly that. They prove to your brain that you're moving, even when the finish line is far away. And once your brain believes you're moving, it works harder to keep that movement alive. The key is to recognize and use these wins instead of letting them disappear unnoticed. One way to do that is by closing loops. Every time you finish something, even a small task, mark it as done. Check it off, cross it out, file it away. That simple act signals to your brain that progress has been made. And that signal builds confidence in your ability to keep going. Another way is to chain wins together. Don't let a small win exist in isolation. Use the energy from finishing one thing to push straight into the next. This is where momentum compounds, when each completed action fuels the next one instead of standing alone. It also helps to track visible progress. It could be a list of completed tasks, a visual project board, or even a daily journal. When you can see how far you've come, it's harder to convince yourself that you're stuck. And when you believe you're making progress, you naturally want to protect it. Small wins also help in moments when motivation fades. It's much easier to start something new when you just finish something else. That's because your brain is already in motion. You're riding the psychological momentum of completion. But here's the catch. You have to let yourself feel the win. Not in a way that makes you complacent, but in a way that reinforces the identity of someone who makes consistent progress. That identity is what keeps you showing up, even on days when it would be easier not to. Small wins matter for another reason too. They shorten the feedback loop. When you wait too long between starting something and seeing results, your brain gets restless. It starts looking for easier rewards, which often means distractions. But when you give yourself frequent wins, you satisfy that need for reward without leaving your work. The more you embrace small wins, the more you create a self-sustaining cycle. You act, you win, you act again. Each turn of that cycle strengthens your momentum until moving forward feels natural. And it's not just about work. You can apply this anywhere you want to build consistency, health, learning, personal habits. The principle is the same. Keep the wins close enough together that you never feel far from your next one. Over time, these small wins start to merge. You stop thinking of them as individual victories and start seeing them as the normal way you operate. And when progress becomes normal, you stop chasing motivation altogether. You're carried by rhythm. Keep stacking those wins. Protect them, because they're not just signs you're moving forward. They're the very thing that keeps you moving forward. And when you live this way long enough, you reach the point where momentum is no longer something you build, it's something you are. When momentum becomes part of who you are, you stop asking how to find it. You simply live in a way that keeps it alive. You no longer see your progress as fragile. It's steady, reliable, and self-sustaining. This is the real goal. Not to work in bursts of energy and hope they last. Not to depend on a lucky day when everything clicks. But to live in a rhythm that carries you forward, no matter what the day brings. It's the difference between fighting to get back on track and never leaving the track in the first place. And that difference changes everything. You think and act differently when you trust your own momentum. You stop overthinking the start. You stop doubting whether you can keep going. You simply move, and that movement creates more movement. The best part is, you don't have to force it anymore. What once took deliberate effort is now automatic. You show up because that's what you do. You keep going because stopping would feel unnatural. The truth is, momentum isn't built in one dramatic moment of change. It's built in small, consistent choices stacked over time. The way you start your day, the way you protect your flow, the way you keep moving at a pace you can sustain, the way you protect your streak, the way you let small wins push you into bigger ones. Each of those choices reinforces the next, until momentum is no longer something you're chasing. It's the ground you're walking on. This is why you can't treat momentum as a short-term project. You have to guard it like the foundation of everything you want to achieve. Because that's exactly what it is. If you've been living in a cycle of start, stop, start again, you already know how exhausting it is. Breaking that cycle starts with one decision: to stop letting momentum slip through your hands every day. And to commit, really commit, to protecting it as the asset it is. Once you do, you'll notice something. Life stops feeling like a series of restarts. You carry progress from one day into the next, and you stop wondering if you'll keep going, because you're already in motion. So decide now, not to have a good week or a good month, but to live as someone who keeps their momentum alive, no matter what. If this spoke to you, subscribe now. Because this is just the beginning of what you can do when your momentum is yours to keep, and nothing and no one can take it.